Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope you're having a really good day so far. If you're new here, my name's Taylor. I come to you from Baltimore City, Maryland, and on my YouTube channel I feature content that's generally focused on knitting and spinning. In today's episode of what I call the Thread to Mend podcast, where I sit down and share with you the things that I'm making in real time, I thought I would sit and talk about what I'm planning to knit, because I really did not get very much knitting done this week. I did do a lot of things, but knitting wasn't one of them. I did spin a contrast color for the Throwover sweater that I've talked a lot about making. I continued to call it the throwback every single time, but I do plan to knit the pullover version of Andrea Mowry's Throwover pattern. And yeah, I'm wearing Isabel Kramer's, I don't know the name of the pattern. I'm going to put it on the screen because I forget. But I did knit this using my handspun yarn. I hand combed a natural brown fleece and a darker contrast color fleece and spun that into a 2-ply that I knit into this gorgeous, I think it's a DK weight pattern design, which I really love. And it's so nice to have sweater weather again. I've opened the windows to the house. It is nice and cool here. It is a very overcast day, so I'm really not looking forward to editing this video later, because normally I'm roller skating while I edit, but the roads are all wet and gross, so I'm not going to be skating today. All of that aside, I have some yarn to show you. In last week's episode, I shared the 4 skeins of Harrisville Designs nightshades that I picked up while visiting their store in New Hampshire. This is the Insomnia color. It's obviously black, but it has little strands of like an olivey green. And then the yarn that I spun over the last week is this gorgeous yellow, fawn, and multicolored 3-ply that I very much wanted to make into a DK weight to match this one, but it didn't turn out quite heavy enough. It's a bit more of a fingering weight yarn, but I haven't swatched with it yet, so there is hope. And then I pulled out of my stash in trying to figure out what my contrast colors 2 and 3 might be, this chocolate brown that is a Corriedale fleece, one of my very early hand spun skeins that I dyed in the wool before spinning with black walnuts. And I combed that with some rainbow stellina that my camera is very likely not going to pick up. But it's in person a very pretty yarn. I started knitting a dog sweater with this yarn. I did abandon this project because it just wasn't turning out right, but I'm not sure if you can see how it glitters. Yeah, probably not. But it makes it a little bit more fun than a flat brown. I feel like brown in general is kind of boring. I don't know. I have a lot of brown in my wardrobe actually, but I thought that these 2 colors would look great together. I love that it's a very warm chestnutty brown, especially against the black. I feel like it really brightens up the black. And then I thought that this color with those is just a beautiful transition. And the pink and the blue kind of keep it interesting and funky, but it's still a very muted color. It's yellow, which I love. You probably know that I love yellow. I don't knit a lot of yellow, but I'm always picking up yellow here and there in different ways. Boy, I am not with it today. I think that I just had such a calm, relaxing morning. I don't feel like I'm in the groove yet, but there is that. Oh, did you see I have a new little basket on my wall? I picked this up at a flea market while we were on vacation. So it's holding a couple little hand spun skeins of mine that I've been kind of keeping on my wall over here. There's just so much that I really want to start knitting that I haven't made time to begin yet. This past week I've probably spent more time deep cleaning and decluttering than I have been productive with my hand spinning or knitting. As much as I wanted to cast on new projects and have those to share with you, I just never got around to it. I've been spending the majority of my time seeking out new products and purchasing them at the best price. So that's really been where my time and attention has gone, which is like fun and exciting for me, but it's really not that fun and exciting to talk about or share with you. Maybe at a later date when I have them in possession, I have first impressions or some lived experience using those. I'll talk about that later. But I've just been kind of nesting a little bit and getting ready for the fall season. Last week I mentioned and I shared with you a lot of the fall home decor that I've tucked around the house. This week I've been kind of opening up drawers and pulling everything out, cleaning out the bottom, and then putting everything back very intentionally and getting rid of things that I either no longer use or should no longer use. And honestly, I beat myself up a little bit for having such a stash because I don't want to own more yarn than I could possibly ever knit. And I want my stash to inspire me and motivate me to keep plugging away at this passion of mine. But I don't want a stash that consumes my life, that is beyond all I could ever create. So I'm kind of in that little depth of a low where I'm looking up at this mountain of yarn and I'm thinking, how am I going to accomplish this? And I have ideas. I'm like, oh, those 8 skeins of 50 grams are going to become a shawl, and those 7 skeins of 100 grams are going to become a cardigan, and those new 4 skeins are quickly going to become a pullover. It's just a matter of when, Taylor Owen, will you stop and swatch to cast on, because it's just hasn't happened. I think I've just gotten to a point where I have to stop everything I'm doing and cast on one thing after the next so that this yarn starts knitting up. I think a lot about knitting more than I actually do it at this point right now, because the shopping is over. I'm done shopping. I've shopped for everything I could. And now that I have it, I don't need any more. Whether I'm talking about yarn or skincare or makeup, whatever it is, I don't need to be shopping right now. I do need to be knitting, and I'm going to start today. Not tomorrow, but today. A few projects that I have in mind. Let me grab the yarn skeins. I'm going to show you what I'm casting on today, okay? Today. The first project that I'm casting on today is going to be with Harrisville Designs sheer. This is going to be a hat project for my boss, and I'm really excited to get this started and finished because I've already promised it. Like it has to happen, and it will. I'm going to use my own linked hat pattern, so I already know exactly how to work this pattern. The second project I plan to start today, which I will swatch for, is going to be with Brooklyn Tweed's Loft Yarn. This is the color Truffle Hunt, and I picked this up for Brian. I'm going to knit him a hat. I think I should likely knit him a 2x2 hat pattern. If you have a favorite fingering weight hat pattern, let me know in a comment below. I would love to know your suggestions for this. You can see that I have 3 skeins at 275 yards. I'm sure I have plenty for almost any hat pattern, but I would love to cast that on. I was thinking about making him a Harlow hat, but he wanted a 1 color. He didn't want a 2 color. I could do it with 1 color anyway, but I'm thinking something along the lines of that shape, but I also might persuade him to want a linked hat because I love knitting that hat pattern, and those cables are so easy. It's a lot more fun to keep it interesting than to just 2x2 the whole way through. I have a basket of yarn that includes either the projects that I'm about to cast on or I've talked about casting on, or additional skeins of yarn that I haven't cracked into that are part of a current project. So I kind of have at a glance all of the yarn queued to knit. And I feel like that really does help me stay organized and focused on the next steps of like what comes next. So I have these projects queued. I'm gonna swatch them today and I'm gonna cast on a couple and we'll see what happens. I'll be happy to have some more to talk about next week. But that's sort of it for the knitting and spinning. I spend the majority of my time lately cleaning, decluttering, and shopping for more. I've just been glued to the Sephora app, and I went to Ulta the other day, but I've kind of pulled out my makeup drawer. I got these little organizer dividers, and I have everything sorted by product and in a chronological order of like when it's applied because I have a system. And then I've just been like decluttering different corners of the house, different drawers, different rooms. I'm about to declutter the basement and organize that, so maybe we'll get into that later in this video. But I've just been decluttering and decleaning. I've been decluttering and cleaning corners, and just kind of getting the house nice and zhuzhed up. Sometimes in the summer, things just get away from you, and when you have 4 pets, you can't deep clean your house enough. There's always a windowsill, there's always a baseboard, there's always something to wipe down, and I feel like in the week-to-week rhythm, it's easy to do everything but the wipe down, but right now I feel like I want to wipe down everything. I want to wipe it down and shine it up. I even took some sandpaper to my desk here and tried to sand down parts of it. It's a veneer finish, so once it's ruined, it is ruined, but there's a little bit you can do to make it look a little nicer. You can probably see that it's not quite as shiny as it might have been because I didn't really polish it yet with any sort of polishing product, but that could be done. That's another thing to do. She is so sweet right now. You know, I don't want to make her look bad, but Star Baby Moonchild is a diva. She is the boss of the house, and she will beat up anybody to get what she wants. She is, at times, too much. Like, too much. But that's why we love her. She is amazing. If you've made it this far into this week's video, give me a cat emoji in the comments below, because, I mean, can we ever get enough? I don't know. Probably not. Such a good girl. That is it for this week's episode of the Thread to Mend podcast. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you want to find me on social media, my name is Taylor E. Owen on Ravelry, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find me on TikTok as Taylor Knits. Again, I want to thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day and that you take care. Welcome to our fall garden tour. There's a lot going on back here. Not all of it is beautiful, but I'll just take you through the yard and tell you what's up. This jalapeno plant is doing well. She's still fruiting, and we got lots of fruits on her to harvest still. I'm not going to bring this pepper in this year because it really didn't get off to a great start in 2022. So I'm going to start some new pepper plants next spring, and I think I'm going to keep them in containers to bring inside over winter next year. But here we have our front bed. I really did not plan it super well, so everything's kind of in the wrong place, it feels like, but we'll get into that in a second. I have a couple hostas beneath this peach tree, and this is a brown-eyed Susan. I got, I think, 3 little plants here, and they have a ton of spider mite damage, and I don't know if I want to try doing a spray or just let them kind of die off over winter, but a lot of the foliage is probably gonna reflush by spring anyway, but it's still putting on plenty of new growth. I don't know if it still has quite the infestation of spider mites. I'm guessing they don't just go away, but yeah, everything in this bed has spider mite damage. I wonder if it would have done better if I didn't have all of those squash plants really kind of smothering everything. But as you can see, I have a pink echinacea here and here, and a white echinacea here that really got devastated by spider mites, like bad. I should probably cut a bunch of it back, maybe. Would that help? I'm not sure. But this is my first anemone that is about to bloom. You can see all of those buds here, and I can tell now that I really didn't plant it in the exactly correct space because it does fall over onto the concrete, and then the leaves get kind of stepped on and damaged. So I'm guessing it's just a little too close to these other plants and really reaching for, I think the maximum amount of sun is probably closer to this area anyway. But I also have my blueberry plants. Those are doing great. This one especially seems to be doing really well, and I think that has to do with the fact that I didn't drop my pitchfork on it like I did this one this year. I broke this plant in half, so it's only half the size it once was, but things happen. My rose, climbing rose, will be climbing up this trellis at some point in the future. It's got a lot of muck covering it up. Look at that fresh new growth. Ever since I cut the squash out of this area, everything's been doing great. So I'm really excited to see this rose plant really take off. I think I'm going to fertilize her again because she will continue to grow over the next couple months. And I want to feed that flush of new growth really well. There's tons of dead beans on this trellis I need to clean off, and I just transplanted a few cuttings of heuchera. So I got this pretty little one. I think this is like candy apple or something. I think apple is in the name of it. I think that these two, this one and this one, are a different variety, but I don't know the names of those either. But those will one day grow to be nice and lush and fill this space in. And I think that they'll be pretty in the shade of this rose bush here. So the long-term goal for this bed is to have my rose climb up that trellis, heuchera's in the shade of that, and then tons of pretty perennial flowers. This is a plant that Emily Estrada recommended I pick up at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival when I ran into her at the plant stand. And Brian keeps asking me the name of it, and I said I have it on a little piece of plastic in the basement somewhere, but I can't recall the name of it. Hopefully she might see this and let me know again what it is, because I know she did let me know in the comments of a video previously when I said I didn't know what it was. But it is a dye plant, So it might be a nice time of year to dig up the roots. I think she said were what you would use to dye with, but maybe I'll do a little natural dyeing soon. Who's to say? Not so sure. I don't really feel like it, but maybe we will. I also want to see if I leave this plant alone for an entire year, if it will flower biannually. So these sunflowers have got to go. They're pretty much done. And I need to plant garlic someplace, and I think the only place I have is between these plants. My raspberry patch has probably never looked this disheveled. I did top it off with compost about a month or so ago, and I cut back a lot of canes. I think that there are a few more though that I could purge from this space and then retie everything up and make it look nice and tidy, which is my goal by the end of the weekend. And then this is just a total mess. I lost my St. John's wort plant. You can see the stump of it. I lost that in the midsummer, and then I planted some type of hydrangea here that really did not do well in the front yard. It got very stressed. So it's fleshed out a lot of new growth, which is exciting, and a bunch of new branches, and I think it'll do well here. I did plant it off center because I feel like I want to do a bunch of things here, and I don't know what yet. But I think that I'm going to, I don't know. I have a bunch of random plants in this space. It's sort of been the dumping ground this season, where I put things that I don't want or don't need, and I don't know what to do with. But I did have a couple begonias that were struggling inside, and I just stuck them out here, and they have tons of fresh new growth, and they're looking beautiful. And then I have this one here that's doing great as well. In this back corner, you can probably see there is asparagus in the shade of this blackberry. And then among the blackberries, we have tons of black raspberries everywhere. So this year was the year of black raspberries, but next year is gonna be something else. And I've really enjoyed growing this coleus. I love the pink and the green and the purple. So pretty. I hate though how they very easily just something happens and it just takes them out. You gotta top them every once in a while. Oops, I just yanked this whole plant out of the ground. Just back in there. But I've been trying to propagate plenty of little heuchera plants here and there, just trying to spread them around and give them lots of space to grow up. My mother-in-law gave me these hostas this year. I'm liking those. They give a little variety to our hosta patches. These hostas with the little wavy edges, they were really bright green when I planted them. They've taken on a bit of color. I wonder if they're getting less sun than they were before, and therefore they have more photosynthesizing bits. I don't know if ferns always look this bad, but my ferns are strugs to funk. Even the fresh growth looks sad. I don't know, should I cut them back? I don't know what to do. Let me know what you think I should do with these ferns, huh? Over here I have some heucheras started to propagate in this space. I think that they'll get nice and lush and sort of fill in this shady spot once that rose really takes off and starts to climb this trellis. I have some dried up old bean plants that I need to remove from this space still. But those containers over there have been doing well. I have a covered up cat shelter behind them there. That's what's under the bag. This morning I accidentally broke the bleeding heart all the way down to the ground, but it seems like it has a healthy sort of root system. I'm hoping it'll come back. They seem very sensitive, like they do not want to be touched, but it did kind of grow completely over this Solomon seal, which I hope now might have a chance because I really want to grow Solomon seal. Their flowers are so pretty. Pollinators love them. But this garden just didn't really go to plan. A lot of things died. Over here you'll see my nettles are doing great. I should probably harvest the tops of those. And we've grown amaranth, which is kind of beautiful. I did make a few bouquets of this, but the flowers are just gorgeous. I might save some seed for next year and grow more of this. Seems like it actually did kind of okay in the shady yard of ours. Of course, it's grown towards the light the entire time, but that's expected. Just a little bit of chaos amongst the hellebores. What are you doing here? You don't belong here. What are you? You know, these roots are so fragrant. I'm trying to think of what it smells like. I have so much to do. I think I'm gonna start with tying up the raspberries. And if I can tie up the raspberries today, then I can maybe shred some sticks tomorrow if it dries up a bit. But I think even if it doesn't, I will flip our compost bin. It definitely needs to be flipped. So that is our garden. It looks messy. We have tons of beans on this trellis. Like I just stopped harvesting them. I couldn't keep up. One trellis of beans is enough, but I like it when we have all of the trellises full. But hopefully soon this one will be full of roses. These begonias though too are, I mentioned how much I've loved these. I would like to learn how to gather their seeds. I know they're all wet right now. I think their seeds are really teeny tiny inside of these little pouches here. Maybe I should let them dry out on the plant. But it seems like they're falling. So I might see if I can keep some seeds from this. Just been flowering all summer long. Been one of my favorite plants.